Good morning, traders. This is Wilkey with StartupTrading.com. It is Monday, July 6, 2020. So looking back at Thursday's session, because Friday was the 4th of July date of observation, since the 4th fell on Saturday. For the Russell, we were fairly neutral, right? We opened up above value, got down into value, and got stuck in it. The Nasdaq, of course, was the outperformer, the shining star, and the whole day was spent above the previous day's high. The ES the entire day, for the most part, was spent above the previous day. Just a few prints down below near the end of the session, and the Dow really couldn't get and hold above the previous day's range, right? It opened up above there, fell down back into it, and really could not get back above it, and closed in value as well. So looking at this week and what's going on, really we only have one red star event, and that's going to be ISM tomorrow, this morning at 10 o'clock. Other than that, everything else is like not it's just not a red star event. What else can we say? So as we look down through the page, I've got stuff listed on here today this week that I normally wouldn't list, just because if we look at the calendar, right? So until the banks report next Tuesday morning at 8:30 before the bell, we really are in a lack of news. So what is that going to usually do? Usually when we have a lack of news going into stuff, traders end up using that as a time that they can pull the market back down before they see what's going to go on in earnings season, right? Because there's uncertainty of what's going to be going on in earnings season. So we've got a pretty large gap up this morning, taking us up above the range that we've been in, and we'll get into that more in a minute. But keep in mind that the bulls are going to have to get continuation over these next 6 trading sessions, the 5 this week and the 1 on Monday, to really get something going on before this, because this is when the news starts breaking out again, is when the banks report next Tuesday morning. So with that said, let's just look down here at the charts. Just remember, we'll go through some of our medians, right? Bell-to-bell trading, 60 points basically. Session, 80. Overnight, 50. First hour, 25. Those are the 10-day medians. If we look at the range comparisons, we can see NASDAQ up slightly more than the rest over the last 5 days. Over the 10 days, it's up quite a bit more than the rest of them, right? It's 1% compared to almost 4%, so it's almost 3% higher. Looking at the 15-day range again, you got the Russell right behind it. And then 20 days, it's up 8, and then you only have the ES up 1, so it's outperformed 7. And you got the Dow and the Russell basically down 1 to 2% over that time period. So they've outperformed that by 10%. The Nasdaq has. Looking at the 60-day cash change, you can just see the comparison. It's still the Nasdaq followed by the Russell, ES, and Dow. And the year-to-date cash, there's just no comparison, right? The Nasdaq is the only one that is positive on the year, and after flip positive in April, it really hasn't looked back, and the rest of them still have to get positive. The ES touched positive territory at the beginning of June, and then fell back under. So looking at the session so far, we've got our norm, 50 points overnight. It's been straight up, and actually we've been straight up since last Sunday's open, right? So for the last week, we've been straight up and going through these zones. So as we look at it, we're hitting the top of what I have as a zone right now. So I've got this marked at 3171 basically, and that's really right what we're coiling up under. If we look at what's happened since the session opened, you can see pretty much straight up right to that resistance point, and has been coiling up around it since then, right? three little flashes over it, the most by 2 points, and then back under it. So this is going to be a critical line, I think, not only today, but really for the week, this 31.71 area. So as we look at all the indices, right, the Russell is above the previous day's high, and so is everyone else. So the ES is the only one really a significant resistance for me. The Dow doesn't have a significant resistance until it hits, basically 26,595. The Russell at 1492, and the Nasdaq's at all-time highs. So there's no chartable references above for it either. So looking at since we've had our epic drop from February 20th down to the March 23rd lows and back up again, this is the island that we've had up here, right? That's been they've been stranded for basically since June 10th up here on this island. So they had every failure to get back up into that gap has been lost. So we're finally getting back up into this gap this morning. So we're going to open up just near the bottom of this. And if you notice that, I'm going to zoom into this area a little bit. We haven't traded in this area of the chart right at all during the bells, right? We gapped up into it a little bit, tried to close it on Thursday's session. This is the Friday holiday session over here. And now we're back up in here. But notice we're opening above that gap. And again, the next, point that we've lost that we haven't tested is right around 3,200. So watching the reaction to these islands here and what happens over the next, maybe today and tomorrow, that's really going to set the stage, right? Do we fall back into this area of the chart again and start backing and filling, or do we start working on this going into earnings next week? So I think this is going to be key. I think a lot of people were looking, for us to test down to this area of the chart and this area of the chart, right? So as we look at the longer term chart, there's nothing for the NASDAQ. I will give you the overnight value area ranges and point of control right around when the bell rings, maybe 5 minutes after it this morning. That's going to be our only reference for strength, right? Relative strength. See where these overnight traders are at as far as position. So for the Russell, again, we're at 1462 on this one, so you can see the resistance on the longer term chart. So getting above 1462.60, right? That's going to get you up to that 1496.30 on the longer term chart. And we'll see if there's any other resistance between there. You might have a little bit at 1479, but I think this is the line for today, right? Can we get above and stay above it, and can we get or do we fall back below? Just one thing to keep in mind, I'll let you guys know. Any gap coming into a Monday that is greater than 10 points only has a 23% chance of filling. The Sunday gaps are more of a gap and go than the rest of the week is. So as we look at that, so the probabilities say that, we're not going to fill the gap back down to Thursday's close, which makes sense because that's a long ways down. So we can still be right on the day as far as from the open and not fill that gap pretty easily today with what we're up. So looking at the Dow, again, 26,297 is my next one on the longer term charts, and then 26,510. And then I would say down below, you're probably looking at right around 25,855. I don't think that's in play today, to be honest with you. So looking back at all the indexes, again, I think the key today is going to be watch the reaction to the overnight value areas that I'm going to give you right around when the bell rings to see if they're a go with or not. And we've been digesting in a very narrow range, right? Basically between the previous day's high and this resistance. So that's going to be an easy consolidation as far as this, basically 40-point gap that we've got up, right? A lot of this gap has been in 15 points is where we spent most of this time. So just seeing if we can get above or below. And that 3,200, remember, is untested since most of these gaps are gap and goes that don't get filled. And I would watch if we do fall back in below Friday's high, just watch value area high. These zones are going to be key after that. Getting back below these value area high zones, that's going to be more critical for the bulls, right? It's going to be more of a perilous situation for them. And, you should get some bears adding in at that point in time. So value area high zone is going to be 31.43 to 31.47 for the ES. I hope this helps. I'll shoot out those overnight value areas later, but keep your eye on this zone that the ES is in right now. You guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.